You also have pointed out in the past, Derek, that the dangers of both despair and nostalgia. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
So on one hand, we do have to point out the time in which we're living,
Yeah.
do a cost-benefit analysis, sandbag the things we want to care about and save.
Yeah.
But how do we do that in a way that doesn't especially communicate
Yeah.
to younger people that we're terrified? Because I think there a lot of younger people look at people my age and older and say, you guys are just driven by fear.
Mm-hmm.
You are constantly afraid that the world is going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, that is a huge driver away for a lot of younger folks who actually already deal with high levels of anxiety. Like the anxiety measures for millennials and Gen Z folks who are either clinically depressed or on meds for anxiety and depression skyrocketed. And so to go towards a spirituality, go towards a religion that is just giving them more things to be scared of, right? Because the world is changing, and that's just, there's nothing attractive about that to them, especially if some of the things that they think that those religious folks are scared of actually seem good to them in terms of more cultural diversity, more racial diversity, ethnic diversity, all those sorts of things. And if you're just scared of these things, well, I don't want to join in on that. I've got enough things to be scared of. Economic insecurity. I don't want to get a job. I don't want to live. And so that's a big part of it. But so fighting the impulse to live in fear is honestly just an evangelistic necessity. But it's also a trust in God.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
is the deeper thing with
Right.
despair and nostalgia. We can always look back at some golden period, and that
Golden for whom?
You're exactly. It's often an optical illusion, and it's also just not trusting that God has called you to minister in the time and the place where you're at, because He has particular things for you to do then. And the challenges that He's called you to meet now in this time, in this place. I think of The Lord of the Rings, and it's been forever since I've read the books, but the movies, in the Fellowship of the Ring, there's this section where Frodo is just really bummed that he's got the ring, and then he's got this burden that he has to take it to, Mordor. And he's complaining to Gandalf, the older, wiser wizard. And Gandalf says, here's the thing, much more eloquently. These times are dark, and this is difficult, but there's a particular, you should take comfort in the fact that you were given the ring at this time in this place, and that's because you were meant to carry it, and you were meant to go these places. And so for pastors and ministers or parents or whoever, there needs to be a comfort in the fact that God is sovereign. He knows what He's doing. He's not scared right now.
Yeah.
He's fine. He's on His throne. He's authoritatively governing all things for not just His glory, but also our good, both of those things at once. And so even in the dark moments, He has good purposes in that time. And so there's good for us to be doing, and there's hope for us in this moment. So we shouldn't despair, because God is sovereign.
Fear not, little flock, I've overcome the world.
Yes.
Yeah. And what does it communicate to the younger folks among us if we are saying that we trust in the Lord, and then actually we look back to the golden age, supposed golden age, or throw up our hands and say this is just the worst situation we could possibly be in? Probably the first Christians beg to differ on that.
And it's really myopic, because it's counterproductive as well, because you're not actually looking at what you have right in front of you. You're not looking at the tasks ahead. There's a good way of looking back at history and saying Christians in tough places have done X, Y, and Z. They've stuck to the creeds. They have broken bread. They've been faithful. And there's a good way of looking back to history that you can then look into the present for solutions. But then the bad kind of looking back into history is like, oh man, they had it so great. They could just throw a revival and people will come to the Lord. And that's fine. You can think about that, but that's not helping you reach folks now.
Yeah.
So don't bury your head in the sand of kind of throwing on the old
Good
the old
days.
movies
Yeah.
and kind of watch, because that's just time you're not spending actually reaching folks.
Yeah.